Yes. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I trust by now a lot of you have seen some of our podcast, and you're probably accustomed to seeing my guest, today's guest, in this chair.
What's up, everyone?
But
Nice to meet you.
we're going to do things a little differently today. I would first want to introduce myself. I'm actually one of Chris's colleagues and co-founder of
Yes.
Begin Recruitment and Career Elevation Academy, which we'll dive into,
And the Chris Begin Show.
and the Chris Begin Show as well. That's correct.
Yes. Not just that, but co-founder.
Co-founder, that's exactly right.
Yes.
So I'm sure Chris has thrown my name around before in some of the reels you guys might have seen, but I want to formally introduce myself today. And on this episode today, we're going to dive into a bit your personal journey
Yes.
and sort of the events that led to you becoming a subject matter expert in your field, and then in turn, meeting with Les and I, or the second co-founder, that is, the third member of the core three, we'll call it, to mentor us and sort of guide us through this amazing journey that I've been a part of for about a year now.
Thanks, man. I like that. Thank you.
So we're happy to. I guess it is worth saying also that we're shooting this podcast on January 1st,
Yes.
2024.
Yes.
Which
You're right, Etienne. One, thanks for the great introduction, and
Absolutely.
two, dude, absolutely blessed from day one when you decided to, join this big vision that I've had, and to have the privilege to call you a co-founder as part of all this. Like, for anyone who's watching, Etienne, you've been absolutely an immense contributor to like the foundational blocks of what it is that we've built and what we're launching here, and to be kicking off you interviewing me
that's
on the
wild.
show that we've created on New Year's Day 2024, which we both agreed is we're really anticipating it's going to be the best year yet of our lives. It's pretty exciting for me, man. So
on the one hand, it's kind of like giving ourselves a gift, because this studio here that you guys are looking at, we've been working on and working at for the last little while, putting it together and then
About 8
implementing
months
all the stuff. But
Yeah.
like we're reaping the rewards, but also not being fully satisfied yet, and striving to go more, and like sort of not.
I like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so
I do, man.
I think that there's many more things to come, but right now, like as we're kicking off the new year, we're not being complacent with what
Yes.
we've done,
Yes.
because we know that sky is only the limit
That's
from
right,
here on
man.
out.
That's what we signed up for,
But
right?
today, like being the first day of the year, and like being in the studio and having, being blessed with taking this time to sort of invest into the podcast and stuff.
I love that word invest, man. Like
Yeah.
what we're doing today is like we're investing, a moment to really appreciate all the time over these last many months now that we've invested to, creating the show.
In this awesome studio too.
All the filming time we've invested in Career Elevation Academy, all the time that we've invested into, getting, our brand, Begin Recruitment, up for launch and stuff. And, the show's not really here to promote that. We're here to, talk about just,
Yeah, but for the
know,
purposes of today's episode,
yes, I
as
like
we're
that.
diving into your journey and sort
Thanks,
of like
man.
where we are now as a team, where you are individually, and where we're going, by the time we get to the later stages of this episode, we're going to dive into these other ventures too.
Absolutely.
But
They might be a part of it.
yeah. But strictly speaking, this podcast is going to touch many ventures, many areas, many people, as we like to call like-minded people that
Yes.
that want to come on and share their great stories with the purposes of influencing others and sort of like maybe giving some confidence to some people that feel as though they're stuck in they may be stuck in certain phases of their life, but not to give up, and just to bear in mind that sometimes it's just part of the journey, right?
It is, man, and that's why, like, I'm really happy that like you're interviewing me, because before we started filming today, you came up with some really, really great questions that, in my opinion, really dive into the challenges, like the way we have to persevere, the way we have to choose to grow through what we have to go through, and really digging deep and never giving up in your belief in yourself and what you believe is like your true potential, and really investing extremely into like unfolding through the process of trying to like visualize what you want to experience as the moment of your true potential and your full potential.
It's not the destination, it's the journey,
it's
right?
the journey.
You
man.
guys have heard this many, many times, but it's truly what it is.
It really is. And that's what it's been for us. Like
exactly.
This whole, ever since you joined, man.
It's like it's been such a thrill to go through all the hoops and all the motions thus far that it's like, I wish we'll never get to the destination.
Well,
if we can go through this,
yes.
through every step, just as seamlessly and like enjoyably as much as we have, it's just been such a,
And as enjoyably as it has been, we could both agree that there has been some really tough moments, and now looking back though, I'm not a religious man, but like I'm very spiritual, and there was this one saying I heard where it's as if like, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I really think like God's really gifted us these moments of challenge, where now looking back, I believe that they were exactly what we needed to have to grow through and choose to grow through in order to really be ready for the next moments ahead in this lifelong path and adventure that we've really committed to here.
Yeah, it led us down path that like we got to crossroads where we had to take decisions, but it's funny how in life oftentimes you feel as though whatever decision you've made was even as far as like our journey through all the different ventures, like it seems we had our hurdles, but all the decisions we've taken collectively have led us to the next thing. Like it's only been great decisions we've taken to like collectively, the three of us.
Yes.
And again, going back to what I said before, the like-mindedness of the three individuals that we are has really brought that into play. You know what I mean?
Yes. Etienne, one of the reasons why I really appreciate us like of establishing like this brotherhood, especially with Les too, who's the other co-founder. Yeah. But one of the parts that have really helped the collectivism, if that's a word.
Collectivism, yeah.
Related to
it's a word.
we're making that up right now. Yeah. But the collectivism with big decisions and conquering big moments, your ability to like really articulate, properly through them. Man, like it's just so eloquent. Yeah, it's great, man. I really enjoy, hearing moments like that.
Yeah.
It's great.
I'm glad to hear it. I like to, not to give myself a pat on the back.
It's okay to give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah, but I, as many things I'm interested into, just vocabulary, lexicon, languages, just to always, fine tune your speeches and all that stuff. That's something I've always been passionate about, and that's something that I, quite honestly, I pride myself on. So I'm always going to strive to sort of, and especially this, I'm so proud and invigorated by this product that we're offering to the world that I want for it to be like the absolute best version it can be.
For sure, man.
So
me too, man. It was it was like 3 years ago when I was, having a moment of really diving into the vision and like the branding for, the company and who I wanted to be and what I wanted my stage to look like. And it was really founded on this philosophy where I say like, your career is important, your work is important, so let's get to work.
Exactly.
And I really feel that why we're succeeding so well, and especially with you being a part of this, is because you, as much as we really believe in how important people's careers are. And that was foundationally what I wanted my stage and platform to be based on, is to speak from that point, especially because of all the challenges, man, a lot of ups and many low downs that I had in my career.
What we're about to offer, I personally wish I was privy to coming up.
Thanks, man.
Going through like the numerous jobs I've had, like as a late teenager, young adult, going through the motion, trying to find my way through life. And as I'm sure our audience will be, motivated to dive into the courses and everything we have to offer. They'll find so many great relevant insights and hints for them to get ahead professionally. And quite honestly, I do pretty well for myself. I've done pretty well because I had to actually the same way take decisions, and I was I was on one side or the other, and ultimately I was led down the path that ultimately made me land here.
Yes.
But for any other hurdles I might have had in my life, like the advice and the pieces of advice and insights that we're offering these people, I wish I would have had. So I strongly encourage anyone that find themselves like struggling or like just like at a at a weird place in their professional growth to really dive into that stuff, because I think it can help them greatly.
I'm glad you agree, and I know you do, and that's like why we're up working at 5-6 a.m. More often than not, almost every day of the week, is because my stage in that platform, I just don't want anyone to have to grow through the moments and real bad challenges, in my opinion, that I had to grow through.
Yep.
In my corporate career. Like, that's really why I value how important people's careers are. And also too, like, as I was in my early part of my career working as a CPA and as an employee, I served in small, medium, and large private organizations. I had the privilege of working with some amazing people in one of the world's largest publicly traded companies in the mining industry. And that whole, experience as like, being an accounting professional for myself was a good one. And I always, even when I was in high school, college, university, and the professional accreditation program that I had to take, and I had major aspirations to become this major influential leader. But every time I tried to go all in for it and I started a new job, or tried to find a new job, I always fell short.
Yep.
And after being in that process for like nearly 7.5, 8 years, and then at the end, I'll say losing my last job as an accountant, I was defeated, man. Like, I never even wanted to apply for another accounting job again. And then now, after serving in the global recruitment industry for nearly 8 years, I've now seen thousands of job seekers or candidates go through the motions and the exercises of trying to find the great job that's going to make them happy. And now more than ever, now that I understand that, okay, for every one job that there's 80, 90, 100 applicants, and only one person more often than not wins that job. So the levels of disappointment out there in the world now more than ever, especially when things are just so challenging in the world, like inflation. Like, if you're working a salary job and your annual pay increase didn't exceed inflation, like if you're in Canada, the US especially, inflation's been brutal the last few years,
what
right?
proves to be the case with just about anyone in Canada right now.
It's tough, man.
Things are completely out of whack right now, so people are hurting.
Yeah, and so now, like, I know a lot of secrets, man, that can help a lot of people, and especially because of having, probably 6+ years like in the formal education system, like college, university, and getting my CPA designation. I've discovered, and now you've, by being along my side, you've discovered that, like, there's so much information, man, that I'm really excited to be sharing out there with people, right?
Les and I will, the three of us collectively, be able to sort of unveil that to the world, or for whoever's interested.
Yeah,
but
it's been 3 years in the making to be able to get to that point of unveiling, and it's just, I'm excited to be here. But anyways, man, happy New Year's, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's shake on it.
Yeah, happy New Year's.
It's pretty amazing to finally be able to sit across from one another in this awesome studio and just shoot it across kind of.
Yeah, I really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just leveling up, man. To
the feeling is mutual.
Host me. This is great, man. Thank you.
So I guess I'd like to begin from the start. So if we go back to your childhood and your upbringing, at what stage would you say you felt like you had the entrepreneurial fiber?
Like that entrepreneurial heart, that fire, and all that kind of stuff. That's a great question. I've actually never been asked that. If I was gonna, think back as the earliest of my childhood, when, like,
I didn't mean to box you into a corner.
No, but that's great, man. I knew, like, based on how excited I was when I read the questions that you wanted to ask for me to share, with the world. I think they're great. So, entrepreneurial fiber to me, maybe I'll start with kind of like my definition of that. Like,
please.
My definition of that is one that has, a trait and a quality of, like, leadership, and also a trait and a quality of, like, vision and, like, imagination, and creativeness too, actually. And for me, I was lucky. There's some parts of my childhood that I would consider myself, I was very lucky, where I was put into places where I had to be very, very competitive. And, for example, I grew up playing, competitive hockey, double A, like hockey. It was what was really, really big in Northern Ontario. If I wasn't playing hockey in the wintertime, I was skiing, you know, and we had this little ski hill that
So mostly in sports, we'll say, because there's competitiveness in, you know, school matters or, you know, art or whatever, but for you it was mostly revolving around sports, we'll say.
Yeah, I would say like the leadership quality that I really embodied, you know, at a young age, like where it really became a part of like my identity, was I was just really, really competitive as a kid. I think it also kind of it stems from the fact that I'm an only child as well too.
Okay, so am I, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
I know the feeling.
Okay, good. And being as like an only child and then playing competitive sports, and just really that being like what I did like all the time when I was a kid, like at least in the winters. If it was the summers, I was playing golf, competitive baseball, and all that kind of stuff. And I just, for some reason, maybe it was my mom, you know, really just embodied in me like, you know, Chris, like try to be the best, but enjoy the process as well. And so like that entrepreneurial fiber really started, you know, from sports when I was a kid. And now looking back as I've now unfolded into like videography and cinematography, creating content and like that artistic side, two things kind of come to mind. When I was like a grade 6 to 8, I was given the opportunity by this amazing teacher of mine. His name was Mr. McDonald. And
shout out to Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, Mr. McDonald. If you ever watch this, man, thank you for everything. But
it's important to shout them out, right?
Absolutely,
because they're part of who we have become. And
yeah, and this teacher of mine, he has a really an amazing story too, where he was just so musically inclined. Where like he was, most music teachers that I've heard about, you know, teach like Mary Had a Little Lamb and you know basic kind of boring ass stuff like that.
As part of the curriculum.
Yeah, as part of the curriculum in school, and you know, starting in like grade 5 at this public school, instead of teaching that, after like you learned like, you know, how to read notes and what notes were like, how to play them on an instrument. He then was teaching, you know, like all like the rock and roll songs from like the 60s to 70s, but he was able to break it down related to like alto saxophones, tenor saxophones, trumpets, flutes, clarinets, piano, drums, bass, electrical guitar, and everything. And so I had started out school as a young boy, and I was attending a Catholic school.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, like, I just, at the end of it, for what I remember, I just wasn't getting along with, like, any of the teachers. I was just, maybe that was that entrepreneurial fiber that was just too much against the grain. And I just needed, you know, this teacher, Mr. McDonald, to be in his environment where, I remember the first day I met him, it was like a Christmas break, and I was going into, like, the second semester, and he was, you know, I was almost like an interview to be allowed into his class.
Really?
And, like, he had such a strong, commanding presence. I immediately respected him like when he was like one of my hockey coaches or something like that, where I'm like, yes, sir, no, sir. If you say bark, I'll ask how loud. Kind of thing, right? And so I then went into his music class, and the first day, I literally picked up an alto saxophone. I sat beside one of the guys in hockey that I played with or whatever. I even had like the reed that was like upside down or whatever. He's like, Mr. Begin. He's like, do you know how to play that instrument? I'm like, no, sir. He's like, all right, take this book, go in that back room, don't come out until you know how to play it.
Awesome.
So in literally like 5 days or 6 days, I would say, the next Monday I show up to class, I'm sitting in the front row where the alto saxophones were.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, Mr. Begin. He's like, I see you're sitting down here again. He's like, do you know how to play? He's like, I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, all right, take this, let's do it. So he would lead the class with a piano, and like you would have like all like the
I had the music class kind of like those too.
Yeah. And
where everyone was involved with different instruments or whatever, but then coming off that sort of assignment, you decided to get into the front row.
Yeah.
Just to sort of show that.
Yeah, I'm like, hey man, I'm ready, right? Again, it's like that entrepreneurial fiber
Absolutely.
that was in me. And sure enough, or whatever, he led the way in this one song. I can't remember what it was. It was one of those cool rock and roll songs. And, you know, sure enough, after like maybe like 30 seconds of playing or whatever, he got up, he's like, bravo, man. And that was like, for me, like getting external validation from like coaches and leadership and like those pats on the back, that was like another thing that really cemented like, hey, when and if like you're being competitive, when and if like you're rising up and stepping up, it's okay, it's allowed. Do it more, be better, right?
There, on the one hand, there's being competitive, but in this competitiveness, there is also a sense of like helping others to grow and be better, also to sort of enlighten them and light a fire under their feet to compete.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess we'll say, right?
Absolutely. And there was one thing too that he really got really stern about any time in class when anyone ever said the word "I can't." And I remember like that was another thing that really cemented in me.
He wouldn't take that for an answer.
Just, yeah, he would literally stand up and be like, never, fucking say that.
Yeah.
So in short, like from grade 6 to 8, after getting that encouragement from that man, I ended up learning how to play like 7 or 8 different musical instruments. And so that creative side, also when I was a kid, we back in the day when we grew up as kids, we had like camcorders, is what they're called, right? And you'd have like a cassette that you'd put in.
Absolutely, I used to have one of those myself.
Yeah, and so I think I was probably.
Might still have it, by the way.
Yeah, we should
watch away in some boxes stored away someplace.
We should watch some of the video, man.
That'd be pretty wild.
But just the creative side of me, I saw like Saturday Night Live or whatever, and I used to do skits where I used to put a camera out in front,
nice.
And there'd be kids running around and stuff like that, and I'd get them to draw, be part of it, and like we're writing on like blank pieces of paper with crayons or script and stuff like that. It was just that. So now looking back, like my childhood was founded on being and learning how to be competitive, being an alpha. Like I was lucky enough to either be assistant or captain of the hockey team, and I was sharing it with another amazing neighbor of mine. His name is Brian, and like we were so competitive that we also were collaborative. Where if it was an away game, he was team captain. If it was a home game, I was team captain. That was just like inspiring, winning trophies and championships, and having like the team behind you.
That was sort of what I was getting to where there's being competitive, but also it's like being competitive is not necessarily prevailing on top of someone else, right? It's just,
no, man.
It can bring like a sense of like unity and sense of like, let's be competitive together kind of thing. And like, let's use this approach to be competitive, and then everyone profits off this competitiveness that we're putting forth as a group, right?
And for as long as I could play competitive hockey, I did. I think it was up until like the last year, like high school, and then that was it. And that like camaraderie and that brotherhood, like in the locker room and on the ice and stuff like that, is like that, where it's like you have your moment to rise and you have your moment to like be a support, right? And that's really lent itself well to like my experiences in the corporate world, and other parts it hasn't though as well too. But yeah.
And then so that sort of leads me into my next question here is. Going off of that, and the whole thing about competitiveness is, at what stage did you then? You come up and you develop this competitiveness, through various sports that you've played, and you sort of like build this identity. But at what stage specifically would you say that you've realized that you wanted to help and guide others, right? And was that a value that was instilled in you, or would you say, looking back with hindsight, that was more like a byproduct of your own innate nature, we'll say?
That's a really great question too. I
Thank
was
you.
just having a whole bunch of flashbacks from my life. It was pretty awesome.
Well, enlighten us. Go ahead.
All right,
the stage is yours.
Like there was like the absolute major moment of when I discovered the moment that I wanted to have my own stage, but I didn't know what it was. As much as I was like a troublesome only child, and I had like, good parts about me and bad parts about me. Some of the good parts though is that I was very generous. I did like, being generous whenever I could, or
be selfless, we'll say. If there's people that need help, or that you can, get involved into, helping out.
I had a big heart. And I would attribute that like from, I would attribute that from like, the time that my mom invested in me, and it was though really like the entrepreneurialness, it was really like 2 phases. It was like one where I got, like, because I was an only child, my brothers were 2 of my cousins that were, my mom, from my mom's side, and absolutely like 2 amazing individuals. And, they were, I think it was like 4 and like 6 years older than me. And both, when I was in high school, they were kind of going into college. One went into, nuclear engineering, and the other one went into originally the field of accountancy. Okay. And pursued a CGA designation. And both of them were absolutely like my idols, like when I was growing up.
So you called them brothers because they were sort of the people you looked up to coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like they were just, and they didn't live in like the Northern Ontario town that I lived in. Like they lived in Toronto. And so not only that, do I see them living in the big city, and I just, look up to them, because of just like how amazing and cool I think their lifestyle was. A lot of me just kind of learning about myself was modeling, right? You know, how they are and what their
modeling off
aspirations
them,
were. And, you know, my one cousin who went into the field of accountancy and was, when he was in college, first, and telling me about, you know, the experiences and like the opportunity that it created, you know, I really, really bought into it. And that was when then, because I looked up to, you know, him so highly and thought, okay, like I know this man, you know, my
So I
cousin,
take it he was successful at it too.
amazingly successful. Maybe we could talk about it. Well, just in short, from last time I checked, he's one of like the top executives at one of the largest tech companies in the world. Just in short.
Is he still in Canada, or has he moved out? Or
Well, he's actually experienced a pretty amazing international career, which is
Right on,
which
man.
is pretty admirable. But
Cool.
like his spark of like inspiration and what I knew he believed in himself, I saw in himself. But I also realized, well, if he can have that, I can have that too. And so modeling and following that, when you know, it was basically the moment when I had that initial spark of like, hey, I want to experience something amazing in the corporate world, though specifically.
Yep.
It would have been in like grade 12, and just in time, because like actually I think I graduated high school with like a 57 average. Like I barely got through, but it was only when I had that moment of like, okay, I have to know marketing, economics, and accounting. I'm like, I doubled down and really invested my time in like the final semesters of high school to be able to have a high enough grade to like at least graduate.
To master the areas that you thought were necessary in order to succeed wherever you already had made up your mind where you wanted to go.
Absolutely.
From whatever you might have seen from these guys that you were looking up to, but then other stuff you might have researched or like made self-educated on yourself, even at that like early stage.
Yeah, that's right. Because like when I was in high school, like I didn't in any way, shape, or form, majority of the classes that I was in related or connected to like a future that I was going to experience. And therefore, if like I don't appreciate something, I'm not going to be investing my time in it. Much like when I was a young kid, and much like how I am today, anything that I did ever want to do, I always went like 110% in. Right? And so when I actually discovered, okay, accounting, marketing, commerce, and what have you, was like the core classes that were remaining to take, and the rest of like my high school career was what I really extremely invested my time in. And so that was like the initial spark of like, you know, entrepreneurial fiber that I really experienced. But it was only after, you know, I served in the world of accounting for about 7.5 years, and then I joined the global recruitment industry. And I was in there for about 3, was when I was given just this random opportunity, a phone call from a fellow work colleague. And he's like, hey man, he's like, you're doing really, really good at work right now. He's like, I just went to this one event, and it's posted by this man named Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know him, but the next upcoming event is in like, say, 2 months.
Did you know him then?
I had no idea.
Okay, you've never even heard of the name.
I had no idea who Tony Robbins was. It's funny, I even, now looking back, like I do a cameo in a movie or two once or twice. Okay. And I'm like, oh, I just brush it off. I'm like, you know.
So this was actually my next question, is whether the world of staffing and recruiting was something that you intentionally chased, or was it something that was like sort of like a byproduct of circumstances for you?
It was a massive byproduct of circumstances that happened for me. And I say that because my last job as an accountant, when I lost it, basically I was jobless, and you know, had gone through it was basically, I lost that last job. I had to move back to my hometown and not actually be in like the downtown core of Toronto. And then that combined with like a really bad breakup, and not to mention too, I was living in like this really, really nice, like it was basically a mansion on the lake, right? But I had like the whole basement to myself, and beautiful view and stuff. Okay. But the last piece of the puzzle that just fell apart for me was I wake up one morning in the middle of winter, and one of the water pipes broke, and there's like inches and inches of water everywhere. Okay. And I'm like, what is going on in my life?
Sounds like this was a pretty bad year for you.
Oh, it was horrible, man. And so, and it was horrible because like a big part of like my identity was really attaching the value that I thought I was able to bring like in the corporate world, right? And it ended up being one of the biggest gifts to, you know, give myself a kick in the ass to like actually start. And as Tony Robbins says, take massive action to get a massive different result. Yes. A result that you are not getting right now. And so I left my hometown of Sudbury, and I went back to Toronto basically the next day after that flood. It was probably even the same day. I just packed one duffel bag and away it went. And my opportunity of being gifted the opportunity to join the world of staffing recruiting was, so the next day I was in Toronto. the next day thereafter, I go get a haircut where I used to go get a haircut. And this is in like one of the food courts in like the downtown core of Toronto, on Bay Street.
Right.
And for anyone who's, watching in the United States, Bay Street, as you know, is the equivalent of what Wall Street is in the US. So like everyone's suited up. It's the hustle and bustle. It's pre-COVID. So like anything in the downtown core is like 10 times as busy, right?
Right.
And so I'm sitting in this food court. I got my food and, there's the noise, the hustle and bustle. You're kind of sitting like, shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of people, and you hear that roar of like, a big food court, right? And so sure enough, there's 2 open seats where I sat beside me. And I was eating for about 5 minutes, and next thing you know, 2 young gentlemen come sit down beside me. And these 2 young guys, they're wearing suits. They're dressed really, really well. And so they catch my attention. And so I'm eating, and I'm just kind of overhearing their conversation. And all of a sudden, because I don't have a job, the word recruiting stands out to me when it comes across in their conversation.
Right.
And so let them talk for about 10 more seconds. And I'm like, you know what? I have to say something. I'm like, gentlemen, sorry to interrupt your conversation, but I happen to have heard you say the word recruiting. My name's Chris. I'm a CPA. I currently don't have a job, and maybe you could help me out. And sure enough, those 2 gentlemen actually worked at a recruiting agency.
Nice.
Yeah. Just all through the moment where it's like you're given like those forks in the road.
Exactly.
You can either do, go left or you can go right. And I always say going right.
You need those. Those are like crucial.
You got to
They're
be open.
paramount.
You got to be present in the moment.
Yeah.
And
you got to dive into those roads head on, man.
Yeah,
because otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, so fortunately, I was present in the moment, and I was a good mood at that time, and I chose, to go the right way. And I always say like the right way is like the harder way. It's easier to go the left way and not say hello. Going the right way is always like the harder, better path for you, because that's where more growth is. And just the moment of saying hello and them saying, yeah, we work at a recruiting agency, and it was, I'm talking with them and getting to know them, and I'm just like, man, these guys are so cool. Like they're doing so well. They're getting the results that I want to get, And sure enough, it was only a few minutes after saying hello to them and I'm talking to them, the company, another gentleman, young guy, wearing a suit, sits down in front of me. He's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, oh, good. I'm just making an introduction here. And that the gentleman who sat across from me actually happened to be that recruiting company's corporate recruiter for internal hiring.
Okay.
And so the 2 other young gentlemen, they get up and, we say, all right, I'll hope to see you later. And so I'm talking to this other gentleman across from me, and he's like, Chris, he's like, tell me your story. I'm like, well, yeah, my name's Chris. I'm a CPA and I don't have a job. He's like, no, like, let's break it down for a second here. Like, who are you? I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you just struck up a conversation with just 2 random people and you now have a rapport, you got a business card and everything else. He's like, have you ever considered joining the world of recruiting? And I'm like, no.
You really sold yourself right there without even realizing it.
I didn't even realize it by just being genuine and authentically myself, right? Yep. And just genuinely interested too, of course, right?
Genuine, that's a key word that I think we'll hear a lot, because
sure, man.
It's it comes back quite a bit when we
when
we address one another or clients or candidates. This is one of the things. This is one of the value we try to instill into people.
It is, man.
So, anyways, carry on.
Yes. Where was I? In short,
So meeting with this guy. So which was the
company said recruiting. He's like, yeah, Chris. He's like, geez, man. He's like, do you ever consider the world of recruiting? And I'm like, well, no. And even prior to that moment, I had never even been like informed in any way, shape, or form about what recruiting agencies were.
I had no idea what that was.
In short, like every once in a while, I would come across one on LinkedIn, and I'd be like, oh, they're like just like a used car salesman. That was like the perception that I had of them.
I think a lot of people will have that perception too. This is something we'll be trying to change.
And this is, something that like I'm really trying to teach and change is that now after like being in the global recruitment industry for over 8 years, I can absolutely say anyone who's working at a recruiting agency genuinely values your career as much as I do. Like we're all trying to help people out there. It's just, unfortunately, there's just, I don't know where it really comes from, but there's just not a great perception about it. And so I'm like, absolutely, I absolutely would love the idea to, consider going into the world of recruiting, especially because that company had a focus of staffing, finance, and accounting people. So I'm like already excited. I could use, my own education. And so literally the next day, I'm in for an interview, which was probably a Thursday. I was lucky enough to meet the entire leadership team. Absolutely wonderful people, especially for inviting me in.
And the next day, you're interviewing for a job in the field that you the very previous day had no idea about whatsoever.
Exactly. And so They saw an opportunity to invite me in, and sure enough, I believe it was like the following Monday, I began my career in the global world of recruitment.
Right.
It was
and
great.
there you stayed for?
I'd say about 5.5 years.
5.5 years. All right. So my next question is, you've obviously worked in the field for 8 years before ultimately taking the conscious decision to leave and to start your own concept, right?
Yeah, no, said differently. So I was a part of that great recruitment company for 5.5 years. Then it was basically COVID.
Right.
And so basically a little bit leading up to COVID though too, I was kind of going like and really experience a crossroads with my career and like what the experiences were that I wanted to experience out of it. And more I was kind of connecting the possibility that, and it was a shock because I originally thought I'd be at that company for the rest of my life. And
because it served you well for the time
amazing.
it did.
Like it literally gave me opportunities that I never even have dreamed about.
But still, there was some areas, some tad bits left and right that maybe weren't perfectly aligned with what you thought was the right way to.
And it all tied into the moment when I went to that Tony Robbins event, and that was when I really had my big entrepreneurial spark of like, okay, I'm like, I want to have like my own stage. Like seeing Tony Robbins speak in front of a crowd of 10 to 12,000 people. Yeah, it's incredible. Like how he communicates. It feels like he's just like reaching in you and just immensely connecting. Like how
I haven't had the chance to watch
we're
it
going.
live. Yeah,
we're absolutely.
I know we're going. You want us to go,
Yeah.
but and I'm looking forward to do. But I've only ever seen him through the screen and stuff. But I believe you entirely that he just has the ability to completely capture like a whole crowd.
And he does, especially because of like what he teaches. Like all the stuff that like I really placed an extreme emphasis on. Like the formal education of college, university, and my professional accreditation. I thought it was like the best. It was good, but like I really think now more than ever after learning from Tony and then diving down to all the other rabbit holes of where he got his knowledge from, and then those people where they got their knowledge from. Yeah. That it's just you're scratching the surface with like the school system, and so my stage I really realized I'm like he was teaching all the missing pieces of the puzzle of what I was really missing in my life in order to get the results that I wanted to experience. Right. And that was when I was seeing him speak on stage. Like I had a moment of like deja vu and like just getting at the same time hit by like a lightning bolt, being like, it was almost like in that moment, I had felt like I'd actually already been there. And I just knew in that moment, I'm like, wow, I want to have an experience what it's like to have my own stage, to speak the things that I'm most passionate about, to speak the things that I think are most valuable, that can help serve other people. But at that moment though, I just knew I wanted it. I didn't know what it was. Yeah. And therefore, if I didn't know what it was, I didn't know how to get it.
But it struck a chord with you.
And I never ever gave up on it, right? And so near the end of being at that great recruiting company, it was just more and more I was connecting with like that. Okay, I feel like I have like this different soul purpose. I'm just currently not in alignment.
And not only that, but I have the ability to actually comprehensively convey it too, right? Yeah. Like I might have like ideas that are different from what's being done right now, but not only that, I want to actually put myself out there and do it.
That's right.
And share it myself.
I absolutely put myself out there, and so. After concluding working at that great staffing company, there was a couple months where I was just basically soul searching, know, and trying to figure out like what I wanted to do and what I wanted my future to look like, and I decided to basically take a good portion of time and just invest into discovering what I wanted to do, and then eventually the idea came where I'm like, okay, I know I want to have my own stage. I've explored every other opportunity, and everything keeps bringing me back into like the world of staffing and recruiting. Yep. But I didn't want to create a staffing and recruiting company that I felt was like really similar like all the others. I wanted to create something that was just so fundamentally different with regards to its brand, and more specifically, not just its brand, but like I find like a lot of staffing companies, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, they're a corporate image, but there's no face to it, right? For me, like I look at like amazing influencers like say Tony Robbins, Garrett J. White, Lewis Howes, Mel Robbins. I'm drawing a couple blanks on a couple others, but these people that I've just spoke about have had amazing inspiration for me in my life. And they are like a subject matter expert at like, you know, their core niche. And I've really believed now, and I unfolded into the moment where I'm like, you know what, I have an immense amount of experience as an employee serving in the global, in the corporate world, but I also have an immense amount of experience being on the other side of it, where I'm helping job seekers get jobs. I'm working with some of the world's best hire managers, in my opinion, and some of the world's best companies, in my opinion, help hire great people. And so now I've seen both, and because now more than ever, I really immensely value the importance of how important people's careers are, and the struggles towards, you know, growing through the importance of it. That I'm like, that's what it is.
Yeah,
I want to teach.
And so that might be, you feel as though this was what's missing in certain instances for some of these agencies.
Sure.
Right? It's like driven.
And there's nothing bad about these people. Like, I absolutely immensely.
It's just the fundamental concepts of how this agency run might not be exactly like perfectly tailored to the success of both the hiring managers and the candidates, right?
Yeah, man. Like, for me, it was just like a fundamental piece where I just identified an opportunity where I'm like, I want to serve people who are, you know, junior to mid-level in the corporate world, with trying to help them elevate like their corporate careers, because I had good results, but I always wanted like the best results. And now I've seen on the other side of being in the global recruiting industry and combining it with my prior experience, and combining it with what I've learned from seeing and getting to work with and connect with and network with some of the world's best executives, whether like they're CFOs, chief technology officers, chief human resources officers, and just comparing, okay, well, why did they get the results that I didn't get? And now it's trying to teach all that stuff. And so for me, it's like now being in the global recruitment industry, it just really gave me the opportunity and the platform to have, you know, great credibility to be able to help serve the people that I really don't want to have to see grow through the trials and tribulations that I grew through when I was working in the corporate world, man. And so I just didn't see, you know, too many agencies, I'll say, you know, really exploring that. And so I'm gonna boldly say it. I'm trying to become the world's top online influencer within the world of staffing, recruiting, and
I don't expect any less from you.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to, you know, profoundly, powerfully claim that spot.
So you touched on the motivational speakers there, and I do want to get to that. But before we move on to the next topic, what I was really meaning to ask is, now having left and having, you know, decided to leave and do a bit of soul searching into, you know, where you want to go and how you want to, you know, unfold into the next thing, how would you say that you managed to sort of leverage the knowledge and experience you took from your previous experiences into your own like elevated approach, we'll call it, to you know, to help businesses and candidates succeed?
So how would I relate back all the experience that I have and how it relates to me helping elevate the people that I'm trying to serve?
Both sides of the fence.
You know, one of the reasons why I was really, really excited about joining the world of recruiting, like the global recruitment industry, one is that accounting was great. I enjoyed it, but it just didn't align with what I wanted to do. And one of the things, like, you know, from a few people, when I said I was going to join the world of recruiting, they're like, "You're giving up accounting. Like, what the hell? You just invested 7.5 years of your life to get, you know, a professional accreditation. Like, what? And you did all this time and working.
Give this some more thought, kind of thing.
Give this some more thought. You know, it's like maybe you're not flying straight. Like, you know." So in short, why I was so excited to be invited to join the global recruitment industry was that I knew, because I was going to be helping hiring managers with trying to hire finance and accounting professionals at first, I would be able to foundationally use all my education and all my experience of actually working in office doing those roles. I've had the privilege of doing and working roles that are like the ground level all the way up to like the 30,000 foot level in some opportunities within small to, you know, one of the world's largest companies. And then when you take that experience and you're listening to, you know, a really great hiring manager who's saying, "Hey, like, I would like to hire someone who has A, B, and C in terms of technical skills," that's great. It's not hard to identify the technical skills. It's really understanding and listening to a hiring manager and like understanding their personality, their demeanor, like how they are. And then piecing together, okay, well, who is in their team? What's the, you know, what's the culture? What's the dynamic?
The cultural fit, I think, in many instances is technical abilities is one thing, but like looking at a specific workforce, the cultural fit is critical as well.
It is,
because
man.
otherwise,
and like Canada is like one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world, right? And
so you
when
gotta have a strong understanding of that.
You do, man. And also with regards to like what industry and all this kind of stuff, like what softwares and all that stuff. And so taking all that prior experience, and then when you're actually listening to someone and you're able to then say very like with the utmost confidence, okay, well, I believe that this is the way, you know, we need to slightly adjust where you're trying to take the hiring result or what hiring result you're trying to get. Meaning like the hiring manager could be like, oh, well, I want to try to find a job seeker that's like A, but usually it's like, well, that's a bullseye and like that's a purple squirrel. It's about saying, okay, well, that's very realistic and I completely agree with you. But what really gets hiring managers to really, really believe me is when I can always go back to being like, well, not only do I have like all this experience in the global recruitment industry, but I've actually done these roles myself. And so now that I see what candidates are, like you could save money or you can invest more money and get even this much more experience. So it allows me to really communicate within the spectrum of like a result of.
And I think from their perspective as well, it should, entice them to maybe give more credence to your opinion because you've been in these roles. Whereas a lot of recruiters, I'm sure, as much experience as they do have with regard to like recruiting and like the recruiting processes, they haven't been in these roles.
Yes.
So they don't know.
Yeah, and so that's what like really
there's some areas that you're able to identify with speaking to these candidates, whereas these people that have never done these roles, they wouldn't know otherwise.
I'm very, very fortunate that like I was saying earlier in our conversation, like the way life happened for me and not to me, specifically with the path of my career, it's literally perfect with what and how you want to be at the point to like join the global recruitment industries. Like you want to have a bunch of real world experience doing and operating within those roles, and then all of a sudden then you want to join.
Right.
Because again, like you're right, like the level of credibility that you're able to bring to the table is really what's really helped me get really fast results in the recruiting agency area, in the recruiting world, after getting some right coaching too.
That paired with the ability to articulate it properly, right?
Well, one of the things, as much as like I started a college out in with starting accounting in college, like some of my first work experience though, like actually like real jobs.
Right.
I never worked like in hospitality. I never worked, a job where it's like I was, had a shovel and I was on the side of a road doing that stuff.
Okay.
It actually my mom said to me, even when I was a young kid, she's like, Chris, like I never ever want, you to, be, working in a fast food chain because I'm worried about you getting burned by grease or something. And that really connected with me. I'm like, okay, Mom, that's cool, and so one of the first jobs I was able to get, Sudbury was a really big beneficiary of the boom of call centers.
Right.
And so I learned at it, like I think I was almost like under even 18 when I started working in a call center doing outbound calling.
Okay.
And learning how to sell either credit cards or internet or whatever promotions, and then eventually too even doing inbound call center work.
Okay.
So I was very lucky at a young age to be able to learn how to like communicate articulately and understand, actually even more important, like the concepts of sales over a telephone.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Big
just
help.
moving back to the motivational speakers now, because I think that's a critical bit as well. So I'm fascinated to hear what kind of like meaningful impact these different motivational speakers. Like you obviously
massive impact.
Mentioned Tony Robbins off the top, but there's many others that I personally know that you actively follow and that you loop back to some of the stuff some of the concept that you might have learned through them. So I want to know, in terms of like your professional journey, what kind of impact that has had, but also on the level of like your own individuality and like to become a more thoughtful, rational, or like more measured type of individual with regards to like taking different type of decisions in your life.
The big impact that first comes to mind, again, like my first like unfolding into self-education and self-study was because of the gift of going to that first Tony Robbins experience, which completely, removed a layer of the young.
Which happened at what point in time exactly?
I would say now it would have been 4 years ago, at least 5, possibly now, maybe even, yeah, I would say, let's say 5.
5 years ago.
And the reason why it was so big for me, like that moment of like awakening, was after like I finished like college, university, and that professional accreditation program, I actually was saying to myself, I never ever want to pick up another book again. And I went basically, I would say a good chunk of
like you just had it with book reading.
I had it with like the school system, and like all that kind of stuff. And I'm not
saturated
saying anything bad about it
up here.
but I was just like, I've had enough. Like this is like no more. And
as I'm sure a lot of people feel,
yeah,
when they get to the tail end of their
and it's almost
educational
like
journey.
and another thing was like with school, like the formal education system, they don't teach you, in my opinion, at least I didn't get to experience it, what's next and how you self-educate. More often than not, they're preaching, like an MBA program. Well, I'll disagree strongly,
I would disagree too.
Yeah.
It is made so that they don't push you to self-educate ever.
Yeah,
this isn't even a word that they'll be uttered.
Yeah,
and throughout your educational journey.
We all have our theories as to why, right? But the more critical piece for me that resulted in me only getting good results in my corporate career when I was an accountant was that because I wasn't studying the world's most successful people and why they were becoming and had become the world's most successful. It was only when I attended that Tony Robbins event when he was teaching, like, hey, it's like if you want to get a specific result, learn it and master it from learning from someone that's already done it before.
Yeah.
Especially if they're teaching it. And especially if they have like a program or a course or a book about that, because that book, course, or program is taken probably 10 years of their life and condensed it into like 3 or 8 hours of learning time.
As fate would have it, a lot of these people, these super successful people, they're not the products of educational institutions.
It's absolutely wild. You're absolutely right. Some like, and not to mention, not just a product that it's not that they're not a product of like the formal education system, but also there's stories of like what they had to grow through. Like I've had some really bad experiences in my life, in my opinion, but like the moments that, like, say for example, Tony Robbins went through, or another really amazing speaker that's on the stage, Joseph McClendon III.
Yeah.
For example, his story. Steve Harvey, his story. None of these men were part of the formal education system. They weren't Harvard grads.
No.
These men had to just grow through shit. But it was their moment when they started giving different results and starting to rise out of that peak.
Yep.
It was only when like one person and one moment gave them a book or said something to them, or like me referred saying, hey, you should go see this man. And it was only because of that.
Like a fortunate encounter.
For me, it was just like divine intervention, or just someone's like thoughtfulness and generosity that said to me, hey, Chris, you need to go to this. And that was when I completely embraced, and I couldn't believe like that was like what was holding me back in my life, was that like that whole I don't want to ever pick up another book.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now becoming like a lifelong student again. Like I did really enjoy being a student. I had to, because I'm not a smart guy. Like I genuinely believe for every like hour it takes someone to learn something, it really took me 2 hours of studying.
It's funny how there's this concept that sort of I was meaning to bring up too, is when it comes to the educational journey, often teachers will say that you can't be inspired, or this kid here is not getting inspired, or fails to be inspired. But in many instances, is the teachers that fail to inspire you.
Absolutely.
Right?
And Tony inspired me, man.
Exactly.
And that was that inspiration, that feeling, like to be able to like, if I can, through my new endeavors of trying to really achieve an amazing stage and platform to speak from, for me, if really one person, I profoundly influenced their life in a new permanent way, it'll be worth it for me.
Yeah.
Because just knowing that feeling that I was able to achieve that is what I'm all about and what I wanted. And that was the feeling that I got.
If
when I was
50
in
years
that crowd.
down the road, there were two people much like myself and you sitting in chairs like this, having this type of discussion, and the guy talking would refer to you being the guy that he was lucky enough to come across at some stage in his life.
I would be emotional.
And that led to unfold
yeah.
into, you know what I mean? But this is what you're striving for. And
Thanks,
this is such a...
I am.
it's so pure, right? It's like
Thank
it
you.
doesn't have to do with money. It doesn't
No,
have to do with
man.
anything other than just the ability to unfold into your full potential.
Thank you.
And this is what we're trying to
Absolutely.
instill in people, this idea that it's feasible, it's been done, and it will be done again.
Yeah,
You got to
you're not
believe it,
alone.
right?
Yeah, it's like you're not alone.
Yeah.
And again, too, it's like, Tony Robbins taught this really, really cool story and example that I even more now, if and when I'm having a challenge, or if I'm trying to get the same results of someone that's like really super successful, is trying to find the closest person, if not that person, to be able to teach me how and why they do what they do.
Yep.
And Tony Robbins gives this amazing example of that the quality of the results that you get in business is the results of the quality of the coach that you have. And he compared it to
Well put, Tony.
Yeah, and so being here in Mont Tremblant, having like this one of the world's best ski hills in our backyard, some of the kids on the ski hill when I'm skiing down there, I wish I would have had access to the coaches that they did, that they had when I was a kid. And it's because Tony says it's like a gold medal athlete had the gold medal coach and the world's best coach for whatever it is that they were in for that event.
Very
Silver
much so.
medalist, silver medal coach, right? Bronze
Very
medalist,
true.
bronze medal coach. And so now, like, ever since like I embarked on becoming like a lifelong student, hundreds of thousands of dollars is what I've invested in myself to be able to learn and become and grow into someone different.
But never being complacent, right?
Never,
we have all
man.
this amazing equipment, technology here, but this isn't the end of it. This is like the start.
Well, I've learned, again, through like these really successful people that they say, it goes something like where fulfillment comes from in life is through personal growth and contributing back.
Contributing back, yeah.
Yeah, and I knew in that event I knew in that Tony Robbins event that he really was really talking in depthly about personal growth and contributing back as being the two foundational pillars of how you get massive fulfillment in your life. And I then realized, okay, like I haven't been growing at all personally. I haven't even invested 1 minute since being in
I've
school.
been grateful for the things that were taught and instilled upon me, but I haven't actually spent any time giving back.
Yeah, I didn't double down and get extreme with it again. And also I really realized, I'm watching how Tony's speaking in front of a stage of 12,000 people, and he's just sharing his heart with regards to all the things he's passionate about to try to help people. And that's his place and platform for contributing back and serving others. And when I left that event, I was inspired to like figure out a source of like, how do I contribute back? I remember like, it was like the next weekend, for like 6 weekends in a row, I was creating like 6 breakfasts.
Okay.
Which was like an English muffin sandwich with egg, cheese, a
Like
juice box.
breakfast for the whole week kind of thing?
Well, what I would do is before I went to the gym, because I was inspired to like help others, I'm like, okay, well maybe I could, help feed homeless people.
Oh, right,
because
right.
where I used to work on Bay Street, it's sad. Like the homeless problem is bad, man. Like people are sleeping in the winter on concrete girders that are pumping up hot air, but it's garbage hot air from food being cooked
From the
underneath.
sewers and all
Yeah,
that
and
stuff.
so I'm like, okay, Tony Robbins has this amazing, one of many, many amazing charities that he helps promote, which was Feeding America. I think that's what it's called. But anyways, he's close to like, I want to say almost like 500 million meals served. And so he really connected me with that possibility. So, for 6 weekends, where every Saturday before I would go to the gym, I would make 6 English muffin sandwiches with egg and cheese and a cookie.
Awesome.
And then I would drive in my SUV and I'd go around to where my work was. And if I saw someone, it's like, would you like a free meal? And I would go and, these poor people, they'd look up at you and like, they'd look, but there's no one home, man.
Yeah.
And after doing that for like 6 weeks, I'm like, I'm not achieving, I'm contributing, but I'm not getting like the result. I'm not like connecting, and resulting from that connection is difference in attitude, thought, belief, and action.
Right.
And then I went years with like never giving up on like figuring out what my stage could look like or how do I contribute back. Like I remember even exploring the idea of even having a podcast earlier, like after that event, but I didn't know how it would look and feel and work and stuff like that. But now, like why I am doing this is because I realize now, like for me, contributing back and serving others, and now it's like having the privilege of, speaking to, thousands of professionals out there and having them give me their opportunity to speak to them and give them my ideas and thoughts and philosophies on how to get ahead in the corporate world, but not just in the corporate world, but within life, fitness, spirituality, and just in general, And like every once in a while, it's not that I just connect with people. Everyone I find there's always a connection. But sometimes it's like, I'm getting a call back and be like, hey man, like that advice you gave me, like I got a great job, or that advice you gave me, like it's now I'm learning from this guy, and like, did you know that this guy has learned, from something like this or for someone like that? And so
the notion of paying it forward as well. If we
Yes.
can inspire others, we want them to then in turn inspire others.
That's exactly that ripple effect, right? And that's what I was like, I'm kind of like a byproduct of that ripple that Tony's created, and I'm hoping to create that ripple effect as well too, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
So since you brought it up, Chris, for the last portion of this episode here, I want to maybe dive a little bit into what kind of advice you would want to give to some people in different areas that I broke down here. So I would like to know maybe, and to talk about a little bit about Career Elevation Academy and like the recruitment side of the recruitment ventures that we're diving into. So in your opinion, just, again, being the subject matter expert that you have become and that you strive to, ever improve being.
Yeah, thank you.
So in your opinion, Chris, whether it be from a hiring manager's perspective, trying to build like a picture perfect workforce, right?
Okay.
Or from a candidate's perspective, trying to become like an essential piece of the corporate puzzle.
Okay.
How would you, in your own words, describe, or in other words, define success?
That's a great question. And this is something I've really dove into on a lot of, calls that I do, right? Is, in my opinion, like success is a definition in the dictionary, but it's
a mere word.
It's a mere word, and it has this exact definition. But really, success has two parts. It has the experiences that you want to experience, and the process in which you want to experience, that you want to grow through to experience. But more importantly, it's the feeling that you have in your heart and the alignment that you have in your heart. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
That's fine.
I'm just thinking about like how connected I am to, how connected I am to like going after the world's success. But success, like for me, it's like, it's the result and the path that like you want to grow through to get and unfold through various experiences in your life.
Maybe achieving the various steps leading up to, the success is actually what success is.
Yeah, and more so that process and that path of the experiences that you want to unfold through. It's how you want to feel, and what that feeling of that experience means to you, and you could be content, you could deem success to be, a certain placeholder of a job title, a salary, a working from home or working in office, working in a specific industry or for a specific company. That's cool.
I've succeeded. I have gone after that title. I have now got that title.
But one of the biggest missing pieces of the puzzle, I think, for so many people in the corporate world is that their identity is just attached to just your corporate result. And now more than ever, I've realized that my fulfillment, and more especially the success that I believe I'm getting in life, is more important.
Right.
Like the growth that I'm getting, say, with fitness, the growth that I'm getting with regards to being more profoundly confident and certain in my spirituality and my alignment to my soul purpose. My success in establishing new relationships where I'm serving others, but yet being served. Just there's this amazing reciprocity. And of course, like success for me is making difference in the ways that I'm wholeheartedly connected to in people's lives. So
beautiful.
If you're an employee, right, or if you're working in the corporate world, I challenge you to take success and your identity of it far beyond just the results that you're getting in the corporate world. Said differently, who is it? Warren Buffett or some amazing successful professional says, every day, especially if you're working for another company, if you're an employee, you should invest an equal amount of time doubling down in self-studying and learning the things that are most important to you to better you, as the same amount of hours that you spend working at that other company. And now more than ever, I really realize that. And now more than ever, I'm trying to teach people this, saying, hey, listen, like your job's not the be all end all. If you want to start getting different results in your corporate world, you got to start becoming a different person. And
that's personally how I achieved higher ground and higher success myself is when I started applying that.
Thank you. It's amazing to hear that, because it's just so important, and it was one of the missing pieces of the puzzle of why I only got good results in my corporate world. Corporate world, it was always why, I got, great results in the global recruitment industry. And it's now that I practice that, like, for example, today it's New Year's Day. I started working at 4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
But like
but that's exactly, it goes to show you that's what it means to be successful.
And it's not working. It's like I look at it, it's like I'm investing my time in myself.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to be doing that because you feel fulfilled. And like from a place of like when you feel fulfilled, taking action and having to learn whatever it is that's new in order for you to become a different person, in order for you to get different results, in order for you to get different experiences, it's so much easier. When and if like you feel that like you have to like, oh man, I gotta learn this new thing for my job. Well, yeah, that's a horrible feeling. But like if you foundationally have other things that you're growing in your life that you're experiencing, you're getting better at, then it's so much easier with that momentum from somewhere else to go do it in the more harder things, right?
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Man. So as I'm sure a lot of you guys know by now that we'll be releasing some online material for career advancement strategies.
Yes.
And
Career Elevation Academy.
Career Elevation Academy.
Welcome
our
to.
baby.
Yes, absolutely.
So we are rolling this out into the new year. We'll be working tirelessly.
Yes, early in 2024.
Early 2024.
We strongly anticipate.
And this is going to be some amazing, visually striking, state-of-the-art, cinematic content.
And if I could describe it, I've put out a few pieces of social media content about it, but the whole goal is like, I want this to be a cinematic learning experience where you can sit back, relax, much like the vibe of what you feel like in the studio. Said differently, it's the furthest thing that you'll ever experience from your days in college, university, and professional accreditation programs, when you're either sitting in class or sitting at home going through a textbook. This is something that is immersive. It's a community experience. And
almost hypnotic.
It's one that, like how I say, like I want to reach in and create momentum and difference and new belief and certainty in yourself, especially because of how much I genuinely believe your career is important. That's what this course is about. It's to lastly make sure I give an opportunity, especially for anyone who takes it, that you will in all likelihood never have to experience any of the things that I've experienced in my corporate career, but more so all the other people that I've had the opportunity of coaching in my career. It's taking all those lessons as well too, and all the things that they went through, and also making sure incorporating that like you don't have to go through that.
Said differently, it's also to change your outlook with regards to how you go into learning and growing. Right?
Absolutely. Like the first thing we teach in this is
it doesn't have to be like a hassle, or it doesn't have to be a like some kind of punitive. You know what I mean? Like
it's not, and that's where we dive into mindset, and like we dive into like how do you really achieve and get momentum and keep it, right? And I love the ending of what we teach. It's in Career Elevation Academy, we teach what's next. We teach you like a whole bunch of rabbit holes of helping you discover who is really successful in your own definition, and teaching you then how do you go and study why did that person get the results that they got.
Exactly.
When you learn from people that you connect with most, it's like they're a recipe, It's like your brain like has a flavor preference, and whatever it is that they've got or teaching for you.
Absolutely.
One person could be equally as successful as the other, but the way they teach it and explain it, it doesn't resonate. It
will resonate the same way.
Yeah, your taste preference, your palate preference, one's a little bit more preferred than the other.
That's an interesting thing.
I like sweet versus then salty, right? It's just
very
like
interesting.
that. So
it's an interesting analogy.
It's just really making sure that we're gearing you up, for what is next. Yeah.
Are there any, Chris, just to scratch the surface here, any preconceived notion, misconceptions, or sort of stigmas that you would wish to wipe out from people's views and stances with regards to the recruitment, the world of staffing and recruiting, and sort of change the culture in doing so?
I can genuinely wholeheartedly say that any single person working in the world of staffing and recruiting cares about your career as much as I do. Absolutely. Like I have no unequivocal doubt. The one thing is we're not perfect. And the companies that these great people work within, they're not perfect. The processes are not perfect. And processes result in actions, and actions result in results. And I think it would it's happened, you know, so many times that maybe it's came off as the perception that the results or the actions of a recruiter have demonstrated that maybe they don't value, you know, your career when like you're working with them, or a hiring manager experiences, well, maybe this person doesn't value our career. And then all of a sudden, like you have an overarching perspective that like all people working in the global recruitment industry are like that. And there's a massive opportunity for an enhanced level of courting and catering and demonstrating through delivering massive value.
We'll be at the forefront.
Well, I hope, right? That's what our goal is.
That goes
man.
without saying.
That's absolutely, thank you, man. That it's just making sure that like no one's left behind. And secondly, just being able to provide more consistency. But in short, to answer your question, it's like, again, like anyone working in the global recruitment industry, and like for anyone who ever watches this in the global recruitment industry, man, please consider me one of your biggest fans. Like we mean well, we try to do well, and like much like if it's a sport, right? You know, you might be stick handling down the ice and you lose the puck, kind of thing. But we're always, you know, trying to better ourselves, in my opinion.
And we're learning as well, right?
And
this goes back to what we were just saying.
And like we're human too. Like it's a high volume job. That's no excuse. You know, sometimes there could be stuff going on at home that you don't leave at the office door. Again, it's just, you know, everyone could have a bad day, but like, you know.
But ultimately, it's important for them to know that we truly care.
Yeah.
And
but the other side of it though too, and this is what we teach in Career Elevation Academy though, is a lot of the times is like if you're having an experience that is resulting in a feeling that is not like a fully positive one, I challenge you too is that there's a possibility that maybe your approach could be far more enhanced and elevated or different in order for you to get the result that you want to experience, whether you're a hiring manager or whether you're, you know, a job seeker trying to get a new job.
More catered to some industries, catered to some level, some title level. There's different approaches for different situations, for different line of work, for different fields.
Yeah, so
this
I
is
think,
what we're diving
you know,
into also.
The gap is that you can't really change the world of the global recruitment industry. Like in order for that to change, like every major institution would fundamentally have to shift culture and process, train, and, you know, elevate the great people in these companies to get different results and be different. So what can you control? You can control your own actions. And I just challenge you to, please enlist in Career Elevation Academy. If you're a hiring manager and you want to hear, how to better network or get better, different results with the recruiting agency you're working with, that's great. You know, give me a call. If you're a job seeker and, for example, you're really at a crossroads or like you're really pissed off about the couple experiences that you've had, maybe working with different recruiting agencies, listen, it's not their fault. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to dive into the ways that you're navigating the process. And again, too, especially if like you're a job seeker and like you're not happy with the recruiting agency world, I'm challenging you that is one of the biggest things that could be holding you and your career back. And you really need to dive into adjusting your approach. Because if you've consistently gotten pissed off or not happy with how you've gotten your experiences from working with recruiting agencies, chances are you're not doing something fundamentally different in order to get the different results. So I'm saying, reach out to me personally. I'm always happy to invest.
If you're doing more of the same, you'll be getting more of the same.
Like especially before Career Elevation Academy comes out. If you want to connect with me personally, if anyone does, by all means, I'm always happy to invest 5 to 10 minutes of my time to help.
And by the way, for those of you that are still listening that have made it this far, we're going to get into the exact.
Thank you for whoever has.
We're going to get into the exact details of how to reach you in a minute here, but. Just before we wrap up here, Chris, and I guess you touched upon it just now, but what would be your message, finally, for anyone listening, from young aspiring entrepreneurs to business owners to hiring managers to maybe title seekers or just generally speaking, go-getters that are seeking to get ahead in the new year and sort of, really take their corporate careers into their own hands and maybe try to leverage some of the stuff that we're teaching them, but like just generally speaking, how to get ahead and to elevate themselves in the new year?
That's a great question, because like I have so many answers and like where I want to go with this and all that kind of stuff. And as much as I want to promote, the things that like we're doing here and stuff like that, I want to promote first though the lessons that I've learned that have allowed me to be here.
You've been doing well so far. So
thanks, man. I'm really trying not to use this as like a marketing platform. It's more just to have really genuine, authentic conversation with the things that I value, and for the guests that I bring on, that I value what they've learned. Because in order to get different results in life, you have to learn from different people. And this kind of ties into my answer. You know, if you're at a crossroads, and you know, like whether it's in your career, in a relationship, you're at a crossroads with your fitness. Maybe if like you're at a crossroads and like you're just like completely not motivated, or like you're just really disappointed with your life.
You feel as though something's got to change.
Something's got to change.
Because otherwise you'll be stuck. You're not getting out of wherever you feel you may be stuck in.
That is absolutely amazing, dude. Like whatever part of your life that you feel you're stuck in, I challenge you to then just do some internal reflection and ask yourself, if there was a person that's getting amazing results, specifically with the thing that I want to change in my life, who is it? Then once you've identified that, chances are it's like someone maybe in your immediate circle. But then ask yourself, it's like, who's one of the world's best at doing this? Then go on YouTube, go on the internet, go use AI tools, and ask yourself, and go learn and study that person. Chances are, at least in my experience, the world's most successful people, at some point or another, they've been in an interview, a podcast, they've written an article, someone's written an article about them as to why they've gotten a specific result about the thing that you were trying to change in your life.
Yes.
And I strongly please recommend go and dive down that rabbit hole. And I bet you're going to get to a certain point where whoever you really, really admire is going to reference who they've learned from that helped them get the results that they got. And that's where the learning of momentum and everything really is really going to spiral. So if there's one thing for 2024, please take that principle into approach. Like
Fantastic.
Just grab onto it, man.
Take it by the horns.
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right. So in conclusion, Chris, this is your podcast.
Dude, man. It's our podcast.
It's our podcast. But I mean, typically you're the host, but
Thanks,
it's been a great pleasure for us to be able to swap places today, and sort of, with regards to how transparent you've been, and this great insight that you've provided. So if there was anything that you would like to tell our audience about what's coming out soon, what can they expect over the next few weeks?
For sure. Let's start with one of the things I'm most excited about is Career Elevation Academy. This has been something that I've been working on now for the last 3 years. We've really dove deep into a lot of the filming, the work, production related to this stuff. And so Career Elevation Academy is an online learning education platform that's tailored to junior to mid-level corporate office professionals looking to earn more money and elevate their corporate careers in 2024 and beyond. So if that really resonates with you, early in 2024 is when we're going to be releasing it. So I'm really excited, to be sharing that with the world.
As I am.
It's going to be a cinematic learning experience.
There's some reels out, by the way, that you guys must have seen by now that sort of give you an idea of how that looks and how that goes. But
yeah, so that's like the big thing. The Begin Recruitment website and the official launch of that is going to be happening as well. Very early in 2024. We're hoping January, February at latest. If you're looking to follow us and the Chris Begin Show, we're going to be putting shorts and reels on YouTube.
Across all socials?
Across all socials. So if there's one place you want to find me on social media, you can check me out anywhere at chrisbegin.global.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the best ways to reach me. And also too on LinkedIn, I'm sure you could find me there. I invite anyone to ever reach out to me, whether you want to talk about life, your personal questions. If you want to be, a guest on this show and let me host you, by all means, I'm always open to, hearing and sharing stories. I hope, people feel this is a real genuine, authentic type of show that doesn't try to just focus on the corporate world, but tries to share, people's life stories, their trials, their tribulations, the things that they've had to, choose to grow through. And hopefully. And
we're happy to have you, by the way.
Yeah.
If anyone feels they have an inspiring story, something that what we've discussed over the past hour feels like it resonates with them, and they have some bits of history of experience that they like to share.
And you don't have to own your own company or anything. It's it's just whatever it is that you're passionate about. And if you want to dive into it, if you think this is an opportunity to have your stage and your moment to share what it is that you value most and what you think could help other people and create potentially an opportunity of new awakening that creates that new ripple in the pond, come on the show. Please let me host you. It'd
awesome.
Be great.
So thank you. I want to shake hands again.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. It's been great. Here's to an amazing new year.
Yes.
And as for anyone watching still, thanks for sticking around until the end.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in and staying engaged. We have a lot of stuff coming out in the new year, as we've touched on here. And as always, bear in mind that we collectively think at Begin Recruitment that your career is important.
Yes.
We want to help you guys elevate, and we'll be here to help you guys out whenever you need us. So thank you.
Thank you.